and welcome to Pavement Matters. This is the podcast where we discuss all things pavement, past, present and future. Today we have a very special guest who is Susan Tighe, the past president of the Canadian Society of Civil Engineering. She's also a scholar, an educator, a researcher, professional engineer and a fellow of Canadian Academy of Engineering. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I am delighted to be here with you.
It's okay. Susan's come all the way from Canada to be with us today, although I'm sure not the only reason, but very, very honoured to have you here.
Thank you. Yes, the pleasure's all mine.
Well, you've got quite a distinct list of accolades to your name. I'm just wondering, what led to that success? Was it an inspiring mentor back in the day, or was it just this, you left school and you just had this overwhelming desire to make some sort of change? Or was it something else?
Oh, that's a great question and a hard question, quite frankly. So I went into engineering because I liked math and science, and I think that there was always challenges, and I love this idea of solving problems. And so when I graduated, I actually worked as an engineer, and that really set me up, I think, for success in my career, because I worked in construction and I worked in design and policy writing, and I liked it so much that I decided to do a master's. So I did my master's mostly part-time, and with some nudging from some professors and some other folks, I ended up doing a PhD. And then I became a professor, and I guess that really put me on a track of researching, teaching students. I've always been very curious, and I think in engineering there were always problems to solve, and so I took this path. And I've been an academic for 25 years, and it's been fantastic. I've just coming up to 30 years since my undergraduate graduation, and it's been wonderful to see the progression of what's happened in our field, but also over the years, my career has really developed and grown in many ways and shapes and forms. So yeah, it's quite exciting to be. I can't believe it, actually, that 30 years has gone really quick. In terms of success, or in terms of really, I think, always finding something new to do, you have to have passion for what you do, and you have to really find something that you enjoy. And I think also part of it is I could always see places where we could do things better. We could be more efficient, or we could just maybe try something new. And to me, that's what's really interesting about my career.
Of course. I mean, it's been said by so many different people throughout history, is the perfect job is the one that doesn't feel like a job. It's the one where your passion is speaking through you, you're doing everything you want to do, and then you come home and you're satisfied all the more for it. So given what you've achieved in your time, you probably could have done and been successful in any kind of field, but you picked civil engineering. So what reason did you have for that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know if that really is true, if you can always be successful in any given field, because I do think you have to be interested in what you're doing. I picked civil engineering because it's very practical. I like building things, and I guess what I've come to realize, now I'm in a leadership role, actually, as provost and vice president academic at a university, building teams, building ideas, building tools to help us do better work. And I think that's at essence what civil engineers do. So I think for me, all of that sort of experience actually building physical things and designing physical things has really helped me in a leadership and management role, because it's a systems approach. And I think every area of engineering learns this system approach, but particularly in engineering, where we actually build real things, and in civil engineering, I think that has also really impacted me and how I have pursued my career. I think the other thing for me is I was never afraid to try something new. And I think that is something that when opportunities came forward, and if really I looked at it and thought that, yeah, I could learn something, I could contribute something, then I pursued that as well. And I think that that was also an important part of doing engineering, because you learn how to take a bunch of different data and try to make sense of it and then make something better. So I think that was important. But even when I was a young engineer, working out in construction, and at times, we need someone to work night shift. And a lot of the other young engineers wouldn't do it, but I always did it because I thought it was a good opportunity. And so what started to happen, I think, I was given other opportunities because people knew that I had a good attitude and I wanted to learn. And I think that's really important for people starting their career. Not everything you do is going to be glamorous, but you can always learn something. And so I think this attitude and work ethic are really important. So I would try these things and do different things, and I got more experience. And so when I was sort of completing a training program that all of the young engineers were in, it was recognized that I did these extra things, and I didn't expect extra money or extra accolades. There was somebody needed help, and I always tended to step in. And I think, for those of you listening who are starting your careers, I think that is really important, that you try different things and be flexible. I think if you're flexible, then opportunities will also come your way.
Okay, so you touched upon then that you started your journey in construction engineering. Is that something you would recommend as a good gateway to go through today, or do you think that there are so many different paths these days, it'd be foolish to sort of restrict yourself to just one?
No, you know what? I think it is important to get real world experience. So especially whatever you do later in your life, if you have that real world experience, it's invaluable. So not only do you really learn how things work, but you also have to learn how to deal with people. And one of the most complicated things in your life is going to be dealing with people. Now, the vast majority of people are great to deal with, but you have to learn how to deal with very difficult people. And I learned a lot when starting my career working with different people, different teams, and I think that actually helped me more than any books, any additional courses I could take, because I think it really grounded me. And also, another part that I think is really important, that when you start your career, obviously you're learning. You might have the book skills, but you don't have the practical skills. And I think what happens is, after you get that practical experience, you can combine your experience, your work experience, and your education. And that to me was super valuable and helpful. And now I look at what I'm doing, I'm managing large teams of people. I can draw on those first experiences, just learning how to manage teams and also inspire people to be better. I think another really important thing about working in the real world is you actually have to be accountable. So, I've had the opportunity to work in both the public and private sector. You have to be accountable. Like if you have to deliver something, you have to deliver it on time. There's some quality expectations, and I think that piece is also important, because what I've come to realize is not everybody does deliver. And the thing is, your career is built on all these experiences you have. And so if you've, delivered high quality material and you've been a team player, people will want to work with you. If you aren't that way, they're not going to want to work with you. And I think that is also important, that everything you do and everything you say, that's contributing to the broader profession and also the broader project. what I found is those communication skills and emotional intelligence and just this capacity to work with people is almost more important than your technical skills. So I think, as an engineering professor, we train our students to have strong technical skills, but we also must encourage them to be good speakers, be good writers, and want to write. Because I actually also think that for engineering, or any discipline, quite frankly, more broadly speaking skill sets, you must be able to write and speak well. Both of those skills. And so the only way you get good at those are practicing. And you can come up with the best idea or the best design, but if you can't communicate that in a way that people understand, it's a problem. And so one of the things that I've really worked hard with a lot of the groups and teams that I've led is to try to get people to think about the audience that they're actually trying to send this message to. So, you don't want to have equations in the message, or you don't want to be highly focused in technical lingo. You want to be able to explain to someone, what you're trying to do, how you're trying to accomplish it in a very simple and straightforward manner. And I think that is a real skill that we need to be developing. And I think one of the other things now, with a lot of students coming through our system, they tend to speak in very short terms. They're used to texting, they're used to abbreviations and emojis, and they have to learn how to communicate and speak in not necessarily a verbose way, but a short and concise way that gets the point across.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who think more words equals good.
Yes.
And bigger words equals good. And also people who think they talk loud equals good. I might be part of that school myself.
Yes.
We'll see. Yeah, but that's all really true, and something that I saw myself when I was studying a totally different degree. But it's just one of those things that applies to almost anything. If you have something that's I mean, the majority of people you're going to be talking to in your work, say if you are an engineer, you might have to be talking to the project managers or the financiers or the asset owners who may not be engineers, but they need to know just as much as you do what's going on. And without those proper communication skills, it is a real problem. Mm-hmm. So as we touched on before, you've been in engineering for about 30 years now, and when you started, my guess is there probably weren't too many women doing it back then. So did you feel out of place? Was it confronting? Mm-hmm. How did you react?
Yeah, that is a great question. So when I first started, there were very few women in engineering, and in fact, when I became a professional engineer in the province of Ontario, Canada, only 2% of the whole profession at that time was licensed as a professional engineer. When I went through school, there were very few women in the program. So it was actually quite surprising to me at first, because I didn't realize there were so few women until I actually got to university and was in a class of 100 people and there were only 10 women. That was actually quite surprising to me. And certainly when I started my career working, when I graduated and went out to construction, I was on a job site where there was 200 people and I was the only female. I was the only engineer out on the site and only female. And certainly there were some on the site who made it very clear to me that they didn't think women belonged out there. And what I basically did is every day I went to work with a positive attitude. I was there to learn. I mean, I had studied at school, I worked hard, and I was there to learn. And what started to happen is people then really started to see, yes, it was good to have this person who had a different perspective. And I actually have always believed having a diverse group of people at the table brings better solutions to problems. So it became recognized pretty quickly that when I was at the table, I was suggesting solutions that people weren't thinking about. And that came from being a woman. That was my lived experience and just having a different perspective. I would say the people, especially when I was quite young, I mean, I was 22 years old at that time, so many years ago. And, the people that I think were most open to me tended to be the men who had daughters. And I think what happened is those men that had daughters looked at me like a daughter and felt, wow, like I want my girls to be able to work and be supported. So, and over my career, in fact, even every once in a while, I'll come across someone who has, let's say, very old ideas of where women should be and the roles they should have. And I think at the end of the day, you do a good job. And you come to work every day and you try your best and you push the boundaries. And I think for me now, it's quite easy for me to respond. I mean, the challenge is when you get to a certain point in your career, you're dealing with that less because of the role you're in and the position. However, it's my job to ensure that we do have pathways where everyone feels welcome. And I would say not only for women, but, equity deserving groups, over the years, I've had a lot of people from the LGBTQ plus community work with me. And I think that is important because you create a culture where people feel welcome. So we've come a long way. But however, I still think we have some room to improve. And over the years, I think back several years ago, and I had a number of very high-level government people coming through my lab. And there were equal numbers of women and men in the lab. And one of the very senior people in government said, "Oh, I thought there were very few women in engineering." And we said, "Yes, there are, but in my lab, the way it worked out, it was always about 50-50. And I think that was part of the culture of feeling included and feeling like everyone has a role to play. And let me be clear, the groups, the teams that I've built have been high performance teams. And I think that when we create these cultures, a work culture where people are accepted, and it doesn't matter what your background is, we're here to, advance the mission and, solve this problem or do research here or whatever it is. I think you build that team and then people feel like they can contribute and then everyone's successful.
Because ultimately, engineering is all about solving problems. Mm-hmm. And the best way to solve problems, or frequently, is out-of-box solutions. And you would ideally want to have as many different perspectives as you possibly could, because they all might have their own source of solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is something that, for me, it's so obvious that is a pathway towards creating excellence, but some people don't look at it that way. I think that, some people, for whatever reason, maybe feel threatened, or because someone's different, they may not embrace that in the same way. I actually think you were talking about earlier, what are some things people can do early in their career? And I also think traveling. I think that, if you do have the opportunity to travel to different places in the world, what you start to realize is fundamentally all of us want the same things. We want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want to live in safe communities. We want to do the best we can, and I think that, you have these different cultures, and that just enriches everyone. So I think that is important. But and sometimes you have to take a chance on people. They come in and you think, oh, how is that person going to do? But you take a chance, and I also think that's important, to see potential in everyone and to really help them be successful by empowering them also to make decisions and support them. So, again, over the years, I've mentored many people at different stages of their career. And one of the most important things I can do as a mentor and as a leader is instill in people that I trust them and that I'm here. And so I want them to make decisions and bring ideas forward. And even if the idea is not something that we end up pursuing long term, but they know that I'm listening and that I'm supporting. And then next time the idea comes forward and it is something we're going to pursue, as opposed to stamp out that kind of curiosity and sort of excitement in moving forward on a different idea.
So you're definitely an advocate for the power of mentorship, and I'm sure you've had your own number of proteges, probably even now. If you were, saying, an aspiring junior engineer, undergrad, or maybe deciding whether to go postgrad or even a PhD like yourself, given what's happening in the world right now with the current state of engineering, where things are moving, where we've been, where would you advise them to sort of, what advice could you give them of what direction they can point their careers?
So I think, let's start with the first part of the question. So I think it's important to find mentors, especially when you're starting out your career. But I would say, for me, even now, there are people that I consider mentors still. And because they've been very, very important for helping navigate, complexity of situations. They can put you on track. They can tell you, give you advice to say, maybe you might want to think about that or this or a little more, and kind of give you that direction. So I think that is important. But there's also a lot to be said for peer mentoring and having people who, are at similar points in your career that you can discuss things with and that are going to not be competitive with you, that also are supportive. So I think that's important. And then the other piece, of course, that we've been talking about is for me to share my experiences, because it's like giving back to the profession, right? It's kind of paying it forward. So I'm a big believer in that. I almost feel at this stage in my career, my mentor is more of a coach to me, in the sense that this particular individual is really helping me think about things, which is very important. In terms of careers, I don't think you can go wrong studying anything related to engineering right now at this moment in time, assuming that you like what you're doing, that it's a good career. But not everybody wants to study engineering. So I think whatever you choose to study, you should get in there and learn as much as you can, and really think about interdisciplinary too. Like, I think that we talked about communication skills and we talked about business skills. You have to be conversant in some of these other areas as well. I'll tell you, the reason I did a master's degree was I wanted to learn more. And in the undergraduate program, you learn a lot, but you don't really learn those skills, how to tackle complex problems. So doing a master's was a pretty easy decision. And there's lots of course masters, and there's lots of opportunities to do MBAs or masters in finance, or take some other types of disciplines that are complementary to engineering. The reason I did a PhD was actually because I was very interested in doing international work, and more specifically working for the World Bank, because they don't hire anyone that doesn't have a PhD. So when I did my PhD, I wasn't intending to be a professor at all, although I had always done teaching. I was a lifeguard and swimming instructor and at camp and all of these things, and I always enjoyed teaching, but that wasn't what I was thinking about doing. And what started to happen with me, I started my PhD and I started teaching courses because there were opportunities to teach, and I really enjoyed it. And so for me, that seemed to be a logical choice. But my first sabbatical was actually working in the private sector here in Australia, and that was time where I actually got to know payment management services. Although I'd met Dr. John Yeaman many years before that.
Yeah, well, one of the things I've noticed here is that it's really your interactions with other people that really help develop your skills in this sector, and in fact in any sector. And that actually is one of the things I'm a little bit concerned about these days, is that I graduated from my degree just before COVID hit. I had my last unit actually in COVID. And we have a couple of undergraduates and fresh graduates in the company, and they told me that after COVID hit, they basically didn't go into campus at all. Most of my fondest memories of university, and developmentally speaking as well, were all done in person. Like I managed a society, I had conversations with tutors and lecturers. I'm just a bit concerned that these things aren't happening as much these days. And as you were discussing mentorship, how would someone in that kind of culture even find a mentor in the first place?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a very tough time, and I can tell you as a senior administrator of a university, we also worry very deeply about mental health with our students and our learners, but also those that are on faculty who are teaching and have been isolated. So I don't think there's any golden bullet, but I do think what we need to do is create community everywhere. So for students, I would hope that they would be able to talk to their teaching assistants, talk to their professors, reach out to people that are interested and willing to help them. I think that starting your career, it is important to go into the office. A lot of the folks that I work with, certainly there's this sense, I'd really prefer to work at home the vast majority of days and then only come into the office once a week or twice a week. And I actually think that we need to be interacting and in the office a little more. Do we need to be in 5 days a week? I don't think so, but I do think we need to be in 3 to 4 days a week. I mean, I am still, just the nature of my role is I tend to be in the office. Like if I'm on campus, I'm in the office. And I think that people know that, and they can come in and see me, and even if I'm in meetings, we can try to have them pop in between meetings. So I do think those in-person relationships are important, and I think that COVID has disrupted a lot of those capacities to have those relationships, but I think it's really important that people do have those interactions, and because otherwise it's isolating. And we know, as I said, I look at the mental health statistics, and there's a number of people that really struggle from the isolation and loneliness effectively. And we're not getting that if we're just staying at home and working virtually. So I think that we really do need to encourage people to get out and also participate fully in society. So it's not only what we do in school or outside of school, or in the office or outside of the office, but that we're participating in our life fully. So, whether that's exercise or, joining clubs or, if you're artistic, joining an orchestra or choir, or I think that we need to really be encouraging people to do that because that builds community.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think that's pretty much all we've got time for today, but it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you so very much for coming here. Just, I suppose, if we were to summarize, if you have any particular words you want to emphasize before you leave us today, what would they be?
Well, I think you enjoy your life, and work is a big part of your life, but there's a lot of other things outside of life that are really important. So you want to be working in a career and a profession where you feel valued. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. So you need to be resilient. So not every day is Saturday. Sometimes it feels like every day is Monday, but you have to work through that. And I think, have fun. Work hard, have a good attitude, and I hope that you find success in what you do because, obviously it's not all about success, but it's about contributing. And I think that's been, for me, really important. And I guess the last thing I would say, it's about relationships. Moreover, what you know technically or what you actually learned at school or have learned in your career, it's about relationships. And if people know that you're gonna, follow up, you're gonna be accountable, they can trust you, they know that you're sincere and genuine, then that will come back to you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Susan, for sharing your expertise and for joining us today. Let us know, everyone, what you think about today's episode by leaving a comment. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for all of the latest podcasts and updates. Join us again next time on Pavement Matters, and thank you very much for listening.